Hello, everybody. I am Elizabeth, and this is Maeve.
Hello.
So Maeve and I are going to have a conversation today about different presentation tools that you might use to give presentations. These might be in a class, or you may have a conference or other kind of meeting that you want to present to. Just whatever method you need, whatever kind of presentation you need to give. I think these three popular tools will be helpful.
Absolutely.
So the three tools that we have to present to you today are PowerPoint, Google Slides, and Prezi. So we'll just run through these and show you just some examples of how these could be useful to you and some pitfalls to avoid. All right, so the first one is the most popular kind of presentation tool, which is PowerPoint. Now, PowerPoint has, of course, good and bad points to it. First of all, it's very familiar to a lot of people. I think a lot of people know what you're talking about when you start to do PowerPoint, so that can be helpful. So the advantages of PowerPoint are that you could, say, for example, save it as a PDF for free. You could make PDFs from your PowerPoint presentation and also create different printed slides or handouts to go with your presentation. So depending on what you're doing, this might be useful to you. I've got some examples on your screen of three different ways that this could work. So for example, the first one is the just the printed slides. The next one is an outline of the material. And then the next one is this nice handout with the actual picture of the slides and then the lines next to it to take notes. So I've been in some classes where this was very helpful, yes. Especially the little lines to take notes, because those slides will help give you kind of a visual cue that you can follow along with later.
Definitely.
Some other advantages are what we call the automatic slide presentation split screen, or the presenter view. I'm going to show you that view right now. So this is what it looks like when you actually present to your presentation to an audience. But you can also, if you see down here, use presenter view. This might be the screen that you actually see on your screen, and then the overhead projector, or the big screen, has your actual slides on it. Yep. So as you can see, there's some nice tools on here. There's a timer to help you figure out how long you're spending on each slide. There's a picture of what the next slide is. Yep. There's also a spot here to add different notes. So for example, on this one, the slide right here, we've got some extra notes to make sure that we understand what's going on. You can also skip around on slides using this timeline here at the bottom. So there's some good things going on in PowerPoint.
Yes. So while PowerPoint has some great advantages, there are some disadvantages to using a PowerPoint.
Oh boy.
So PowerPoints, they can look a little tired. There's lots of generic templates out there that we see quite a bit. Sometimes with an upgrade, you can find different templates. But that's when you remember to upgrade.
Exactly.
Yes.
Costs money.
PowerPoint slides are also easy to overwork. Sometimes people put everything that they want to say on a PowerPoint and they just read it off. Don't do that. But really, a PowerPoint presentation can be used really well. For example, PowerPoints are used at TED Talks quite a bit. I don't know if you guys have seen a TED Talk, but they're pretty good. The presentations are well put together.
Absolutely. Go watch some TED Talks.
Yes.
So you can see how to use PowerPoint really well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's actually a good tip. Go ahead and watch some presentations to get some ideas before you put one together. You can take notes on what you think people do well, what you don't think they do well. If they have really crazy graphics, maybe you can start looking into that too.
Exactly. Sure.
And then this is just an example of how to use a slide with a picture and or text a little effectively. You'll notice that we're using a Steve Jobs quote just for an example, but it's not too verbose. We can read it easily. There's not too much going on here, and we can still talk about it without, boring you guys.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I think that's all we have to say about PowerPoint. So we'll go ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so PowerPoint is very popular.
Absolutely.
And so if people are comfortable using PowerPoint, I don't want to discourage them from using it. Just make sure you're not overworking it and kind of play to its advantages and not to its disadvantages.
Definitely. And PowerPoint's probably one of the more accessible, familiar tools that we're going to talk about today. You can find it on library computers often. if you have Microsoft Office, it's already there for you.
That's right,
So.
it's there, so why not use it? The next one we're going to talk about is another one that's very close in sort of how it's put together with PowerPoint. It's called Google Slides. So this is what Google Slides looks like. So how we wanted to talk about Google Slides today is to think about just sort of the differences from PowerPoint. So like I said, it shares a lot of the same tools and advantages that PowerPoint has. Some advantages is that those templates that we were talking about for PowerPoint that sometimes can look tired are actually much more complex in slides. So even in the free version. So for example, the slide templates that they have here actually have more than one slide. So for most PowerPoint templates, it's just sort of one pattern or maybe two different patterns per presentation. For Google Slides, as you can see here, there are multiple slides already put together for you.
Absolutely.
So just like with templates for PowerPoint, you don't want to overwork them, but how might you use them?
Yeah, and this gives you a great idea. Maybe you're looking at the first few templates that we see on the side here. Maybe we don't like them, so we can scroll down more. And we can say, oh, you know what, actually this type of slide would work really, really well in my presentation where maybe some of the previous ones don't.
Right.
So it's just a good way to get ideas and think of other ways to present your content.
Yeah, you don't want to feel chained to the template, but you also don't want to feel like you have to change every little thing to make it effective.
Absolutely.
So for other advantages are some PDF and printing options. So you have the same options that you have in PowerPoint. So those handouts and kinds of things are still available in slides.
Absolutely. All right, so some more advantages. You can share and collaborate just like you would on a Google Doc live. So let's say Elizabeth is taking a trip to South Africa and we still need to work on our slide presentation together. If we find a time that we can meet up online, her and I can just work through the presentation together. She'll see that I'm on there, I'll see that she's there, and we can update it live. Even if we can't find a time to work on it together, that's another advantage because Elizabeth can still do her part and I can still do mine, and we can take a look at each other's parts and edit it as we need to. Also, it uses Google Photo and other integrations, so that's super helpful when you're trying to put photos into your presentations. That way you don't have to do all this weird searching and saving it and then uploading it back to your presentation. And another cool feature is audience participation tools, which we're going to show you right now. You actually find this in the presenter view. So let's go ahead and pull that up. And you can do Q&A with your audience. So this could be really great if you're presenting to a virtual audience or even a live audience. They can ask questions without interrupting the presentation or waiting.
And I wanted to show you that it actually gives you this nice address at the top when you start to use this tool. So this is actually what the slide that I'm showing my audience would look like. And it'll always, and even if you go back and forth in your presentation, you can still see the same address here at the top. So Maeve's going to go in and actually ask us a question. Okay, so when you're using these audience participation tools, one of the things that you can do is actually have your audience sign into the address at the top of the screen and then ask a question. So, for example, here we've got the presenter view, and we can look at, on our own screen, not the screen that the audience actually sees, you can look at what questions people have asked. So in this case, Maeve's asked us a couple of questions over here that we can monitor, and like as you're presenting, you can check it and see if you need to answer a question of clarification or something.
Yeah, and the other great thing about this tool is, let's say I have the same question that maybe 3 or 4 other people do, they can upvote my question instead of asking it 3 or 4 other times. Or let's say I have a question that really no one really wants answered. We can go ahead and downvote it, and it reprioritizes it for the speaker. So the questions with the most upvotes get moved to the top and they can answer those first. So it's also super helpful.
Right. So if you're the presenter, you can just look at your top questions and know what order to answer them in, because if they're at the top, that means more people have uploaded them.
Definitely.
So this is not quite like liking on Facebook.
Yes.
It actually reorders things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, and the other thing is you can also ask questions anonymously. Like, I'll show you real quick. Great. Submit. So let's say you feel like you just don't want your name attached to a question. You can ask them anonymously, and then we can pull them up on the screen too if you want to hit present. We can present a question, and that way it's anonymous and people don't have to Google you later or anything to see who asked that question.
That's right. Oh, and you can ask these questions especially if it's a more complex question, you can actually, have it up on the screen so people can see what you've been asked. So as you answer it, they can kind of keep their mind on what you're actually saying.
Yeah.
So
great.
And some disadvantages, though, of course, there are always disadvantages. You're still working in the same sort of square boxes. In other words, we're still flipping from screen to screen to screen.
Yep.
It has a lot of those same dangers of overworking slides that Maeve talked about earlier. And it's based online, which can actually be an advantage, but that also means that the download options do kind of limit your work. So in other words, once you've downloaded it, you're no longer, if you work on it, you're working on it with a different program, and you have to be online to actually be working on it. Yeah,
that's true. However, let's say you're at the airport and you're working on your presentation and you have to board the plane, you don't have internet anymore, you can still work on slides. It just won't update until you're connected to the internet again. So if Elizabeth and I are working on something, she can be working on things while I don't have internet, and then it comes back together and we're like, oh, what is this? What did the other person do? But it's just something to keep in mind, but not be afraid of.
That's right. There's ways to work around it and
Absolutely.
ways to make sure that it's still streamlined for you.
Yeah. And then we're going to show you another neat feature about slides where you can actually upload a PowerPoint there.
That's right.
Yeah, and edit it as a slide.
Let's take a look at. All right, let's take a look at this one. So this is my Google Drive, and you'll notice that I've uploaded a PowerPoint presentation. See this extension at the end here is PPTX. That's a PowerPoint presentation. So I've put it on Google Drive. Now I could download this as a PowerPoint and work on it on my own computer, or use this as sort of a virtual jump drive. So, but I can also open with Google Slides. So I can take something that I've constructed in PowerPoint and actually work on it as a Google slide presentation.
Yep. And what's great about this is if you don't want to keep it as a slide, you can then convert it back to a PowerPoint. We can export it as a PowerPoint.
That's right.
So
if you go up here to File, check out,
you can download
as you can download as different kinds of presentations, including PowerPoint, which is the only one here, by the way, that you can actually work with as a presentation. The rest of them are all sort of just take pictures of it instead of actually making it a workable presentation.
Yep. So plenty of options here in Drive, some familiar, some new, but yeah.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at our final presentation tool. So this is a little bit newer one, but it's been around enough that I think you may have seen people using it. This is called Prezi. So Prezi is a presentation software that's completely online. This is what the sort of dashboard for working with it looks like. Let me just take you through a Prezi to kind of show you what's going on here. So first of all, Prezi has some advantages. It's dynamic. As you can see from the way we're using it, the transitions are relatively smooth, and you're not sort of dealing with these sort of funny typewriter things or other kind of weird transitions that happen in other programs. It has a fresh look. The templates don't feel as standard or tired as they do in others. In other words, we've seen that same PowerPoint presentation template 10 times. We may not have seen some of these. And also Zoom and other features feel great when used appropriately. So for example, in this one, I can zoom in and out on different slides to take advantage of this feature. But also there's a better presentation overview. So that means you can let your audience see where you've been and where you're going and where you've been. So I can not only show you that particular slide, but also show you the entire screen. So you can see that what I'm going to do in this presentation is do some advantages, talk about more to know, talk about disadvantages. So there's also some things like collaboration that are helpful here. They have the same sort of collaborative tools as Google Slides. You'll want your partner to be actually logged into Prezi and that kind of thing, but there are a couple of barriers as far as that's concerned, but they're relatively minor. Also, you can download it as a Prez file that actually looks and feels a lot like the Prezi that you made. All the look is the same. The only disadvantage is that for most of the types that you download it, you cannot edit it once you've downloaded it. But that's really nice for if you're going to sort of away game where you don't know how reliable your internet will be.
Yes.
You can have your presentation all downloaded nicely to your computer before you leave.
Absolutely.
It also allows you to think on your feet. So it lends itself naturally to conversation and discussion. So rather than just talking through one slide at a time, you can think of your presentation as a whole. We can talk about that more in a moment, but be cautious. Know your presentation well. It doesn't do you any good to have the ability to go back and forth and in and out if you don't actually know where you're going. And there is a learning curve. So be prepared to spend more time creating your presentations initially.
Yes.
And we'll talk in just a moment about how to use paths to actually make a more effective presentation. The other tools that we've talked about today do have a path, but they're just 1, 2, 3, 4 straight line visually.
Yep.
Whereas in Prezi, you're moving all over the place.
Yes.
So that can actually be a disadvantage. So again, time. Because you're finally out of the box, you're going to have to think about the visual logic of your slides more carefully. So you've got to actually do some planning about how it's visually structured. Templates help, but it's going to take some planning.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I do like looking at all the templates and sometimes I get distracted. So
it's true.
That's something to plan into, I guess, your presentation creating time, especially when you're using Prezi. Just leave some time to be creative or give yourself some breaks to look at some of the neat things Prezi has in it.
Absolutely. Look at, just like we talked about watching some TED Talks, you can explore Prezi and kind of see how people have used it well and what you like and what you don't. But don't make me sick.
Yes.
Too many wild transitions too quickly are a nauseating thing. So moving more slowly or making sure that your path points are closer together can help this problem. Also, there is a paywall. So while you can do most things without paying, there are some things that are behind a subscription, but do check for your education discount. So especially if you're teaching, there's an educator discount that you can use.
All you need is your iliff.edu email. If you're having trouble accessing that, just contact us and support.
Support can help.
Yes.
So like we were saying, there is some nice advantages to Prezi that will allow you to sort of give this whole cloth view of things. And one of the ways that you actually work within Prezi is this path. So let's look over here on the left to see what the path of this presentation looks like. So you can see these sort of numbered boxes that go around the different sections of my presentation. In Prezi, these are called frames. So the first view that we have, or the first path point that we have, is this overall view. And then you'll notice here on the left-hand side of your screen that I'm actually going to different path points. So this allows me to control this. If I decided that I wanted to change the order, all I'd have to do, for example, to make sure that this better presentation overview part happens earlier, I could just drag and drop it up. So rather than happening 5th in the presentation, it actually happens just 3rd.
Yeah, and this organizing feature is actually really similar to slides and PowerPoint. So something familiar to work with.
That's right. So it's both the familiar and that you've got this set of slides over here on the left to kind of to show you the view that you have. But at the same time, there is this overall kind of view that you can use that I just want to encourage people to use to its fullest extent. I've found especially that when you are having a conversation about a whole presentation that you've just given, this can be very helpful because a view like this allows your audience to sort of remember, oh yeah, remember back in More to Know, she gave this point about something, and you can give them these visual cues to help them find out what they want to ask about.
Absolutely. Also, Prezi has a really great video integration tool, or video embedding tool rather, hence our random cat. But we just wanted to make sure we touched on that.
Our cat is on YouTube.
Yes.
So, now, stay cautious about using video in your presentations, both for style reasons, which we can talk about more, but also because the YouTube integration does require that you're connected to the internet to play the videos. So I'm always nervous about the sort of away game, making sure that your internet is reliable no matter where you are. So if you're in, Boston or Timbuktu, these things might be more complicated. So just be cautious.
Yep.
All right, that is our presentation, our conversation about presentation tools.
We'll see you in part 2 where we talk more about techniques.
Perfect. All right. Thanks very much.